And we are live here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. What's up, guys? Nick Script here on the P2W Fantasy Podcast. Still in January. We are almost through our first month of 2022. Still talking some football here. Still have some football going on. So very excited about this show today. I have two very good guests on. We're going to be talking about the NFL playoffs, some dynasty, and maybe we'll get off topic a little bit. But before we kick things off, I do want to make sure I introduce both of these guys and let them talk about themselves because they're both very active in this fantasy community and produce their own work. So we'll start things off with Alex on the bottom of the screen here. Alex contributes to Triple Play Fantasy, which is I'm a big fan of them, really close with those guys there. You co-hosted the Tripwire podcast for waivers. I was on that show. It's a really fun show, recapping waivers throughout the season. And you dropped some big news today that you are going to be writing for Dynasty Nerds, which is badass right there. So Alex, thanks for coming on the show. Can you let everybody know where to find you on social media for one, and then talk about what you got going on, man?
Yeah, Nick, appreciate you having me on, man. Pretty much capped up on the two big ones. Doing media content with Triple Play Fantasy. In season, it was the Tripwire Waiver Wire podcast show. And in the off season, I'm doing a Dynasty. It's called the Dynasty Pit Stops, just little like quick hitter 15, 20-minute videos with my host, Kristen Crespo, just doing like debates, going through the rankings, general dynasty theory. But yeah, you alluded to the big news today. Going to be writing for Dynasty Nerds. So my written content will be there, the media on Triple Play, and finally catching my own groove. Things are finally moving in the right direction for me. I'm loving it.
That is awesome. Congratulations again on that. That's big news. You keep rolling on through the off season here. I've seen plenty of people kind of get some new opportunities and linking up with you before. It was nice to see you get another upgrade. So that's awesome, man. And also on the show, we got Corey. Corey, you write for DLF. You have your shows Coming Off the Edge. Also Load the Wagon. I think that's the one with the Madden building. But we share the Illinois roots.
That's right.
And also the Gumballhead beers that we send some pictures to each other every now and then. But I know you're super active, both writing and on some video stuff too, man. So can you let everybody know where to find you, and then talk about what you got going on?
Of course. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me on the show as well, Alex. Congratulations on the Dynasty Nerds gig. Again, Nick hopped on the opponent about how everyone is getting these new gigs. It's super cool to see within the community. So congratulations to everyone as well. As far as for me, Corey Spaler right there. That's the @ as well as the name. DLF, we're writing. I'm doing some projects right now on receivers, running backs, bunch of the nerd data stuff to help you kind of out in that stuff. He mentioned the shows, Load the Wagon. It's my Madden show. Guests come on. They draft a Madden team, get to know them a little more, simulate the year, see how they have done. I believe the last Super Bowl winner was Amr Gaber, who also has the Illinois roots over there. So shout out to Amr. And then Coming Off the Edge, it's with a bunch of friends. Shout out to Jeff Bell, Nate Polvold, James Crease, aka Chef, and we also have a couple other people coming on that came about from our league. Coming back Tuesdays, actually tomorrow, 7 p.m. So catch us out there, Eastern.
And what you also do, I catch all the time, is you throw out some of your data sets and you have some different graphs and things like that. Is that something you try to do on a weekly basis, just kind of randomly, or is it you piecing together some work and just sharing parts of it, or how does that work? Because I really like that, because I try to also do some random like graphs and data plots and things like that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very nice that you noticed that. It's just whenever it happens. I mean, I appreciate those words. It's cool to hear that some people do like them. Yeah, long story short, I just make some graphs, charts. They're very easily digestible, and I do that often just because it helps my writing. The readers get to kind of pair with the scheme that I'm doing within the charts or the graph, and then it kind of rounds about the writing. Usually I just do a graph dump, graph chart from whatever I've been working on. So
I know a lot of people are visual learners, so I know more than myself appreciate that. So that is awesome. But if you were tuning in, as always, this podcast is partnered up with the Fantasy Points Media Group, fantasypoints.com. It's my personal one-stop shop for everything fantasy related. They still have a ton of articles and sets of rankings and projections still going on every single day. So go check out fantasypoints.com and shout out the Fantasy Points Media Group. with the cool new graphic and the new logo. There
Look at
we
this
go.
layout too.
I know,
dude.
man. Just up and coming. Shout out to Maddie Big Chest for the new template as well. But if you are tuning in, we're talking the NFL Conference Championship. We're going to recap that. We'll talk about some dynasty stuff. It'll be a good show, so stay with us.
To win, no fear to give. I feel but I can't forgive. I go all in this time, yeah, I won't regret. I'll pick the best on trip, they don't understand. I play to win, yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Oh, play to win, I play to win. Yeah, I play to win, I play to win.
All right, so if you're watching the show, you want to comment, you got to go to YouTube, because on Twitter, still can't see it, but always appreciate some comments from some of the viewers. But recapping the NFL Conference Championships, really fun games, starting off with the Bengals and Chiefs. The Bengals won in overtime, 27-24. Their last playoff appearance was in 2015. I don't think this team was expected to be where they are, which is going to be in the Super Bowl. So just being super generic here with the question, but I think it'll be interesting to dive into these teams. What stood out from this game, from the Bengals versus the Chiefs? It can be something that you saw that, makes you think forward in fantasy, something just in general for football. It could be something from both teams, whatever you want to talk about from this specific game. Alex, we'll start off with you. What stands out from this game?
So for me, the big takeaway, after Mahomes' MVP year, there was this perceived gap that it was Mahomes and then everyone else. There's not really that gap anymore. Burrow played with him this game, even going back to Buffalo. Josh Allen, you can argue, outplayed him. So there's really a large tier of elite NFL quarterbacks. It's not Mahomes stand above, which is going to make some great football for the next 8 to 10 years. All these guys are in their early 20s. Mahomes is probably the oldest at 26 out of like the group of upcoming young guys. So it's going to be fun for many, many years to come.
I agree with that. I mean, I think when he won that first Super Bowl, he had the MVP season at a younger age. It was perceived like this is the new dynasty, right? The new Patriots potentially. And now we see the likes of, obviously, Josh Allen lost to him, and the Bills looked really good this year, but didn't get the job done. And now we got Burrow with two very young wide receivers right in the mix now too. So it reminds me a little bit of like the NBA, where it was once like 2-3 teams, and now it's kind of more wide open, in terms of who can actually compete in this league. But Corey, any thoughts on what Alex said, and then you can just hop into what you found interesting from this game?
Yeah, right on. So I guess the main point, what Alex was saying, is how everybody had Mahomes above it all, and now we got Allen, Burrow, Jackson, Murray, all these other people. So kind of to bring in a point that I wanted to make was how important it is to have an elite quarterback. But not only that, coaching matters, and Zach Taylor, he's kind of awesome. He made great halftime adjustments after being down 21-10. Having that elite quarterback is cool. We saw what changed over 3 seasons. Taylor got hired in 2019. They went 2-14. Fast forward 2021, 10-7, first in the AFC North, and they're going to the Super Bowl. But not only that, it's having the coaching staff surrounding them, whether that's the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, the scouting directors, and every coaching personnel. And that's stayed the same since 2019. So for the last 3 seasons, they've made free agency picks and the NFL draft picks that have hit. Jamar Chase, Logan Wilson, T. Higgins, Akeem Davis-Gaither. But they also had role players like Drew Sample, a little more blocking tight end, or someone like Hakeem Adeniji, who is a tackle who's had kind of rotational pieces as the starter. So from top to bottom, whether it's roster, coaching executives, or assistant coaches, trainers, whatever it is, the Bengals have just hit home, and we see what can happen over 3 years.
Which I think is very important to talk about, just because right now we're seeing all of the different moving pieces around the league in terms of how teams are building their front offices and all of the coaching carousel news that we keep hearing about. I know in Chicago we have a new GM and a new head coach, and we're going to have new coordinators, and we see how important it is to build a staff that is going to bring in the right people and make the right draft moves and piece together a team. And I think the Bengals seeing where they were 2 years ago compared to now is night and day. So I like that a lot because I feel like that gets taken for granted sometimes. The aspects of everything outside of the players that are on the field sometimes, how everything gets shaped. So great point in itself there. Something that stood out to me, and I'm curious to hear your guys' opinion, on this. And I tweeted out something, and the perfect time to tweet out anything is during a game because everybody's watching the same game and, everybody overreacts to everything. But I said something along the lines of CEH stockholders are probably shaking right now. And I think that was because if we look at the box score, right, CEH had 6 carries for 36 yards. He had a catch for 4. Jerick McKinnon has been their guy in the playoffs. And do I think he's their guy for the next 5 years? Probably not, but 12 carries for 65 and 3 catches for 30. So my math says it right. That's 15 touches in comparison to CEH's 7. And I'm wondering to you guys, is that something you guys feel is concerning? Maybe if you are a dynasty manager of CEH, and you guys can just hop in however you want, but any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it's more his, not even just this like echo chamber of a game. Even after he came back from his injury, Williams was still seeing a significant amount of opportunity. And it's one of those, it doesn't seem like it's an isolated incident at this point. Seems like Andy Reid, Brett Veach, the front office is like, crap, we may have absolutely botched this pick. How are we going to salvage the running back position at this point? So if I have CEH, I'm selling for anything I can get. If I can somehow swing a first, no matter the year, I'm taking it. If I can get multiple seconds, I'm taking it. He's one I would rather be wrong about with him not on my roster than right about him and have him on my roster.
Corey, any CEH thoughts maybe based off of this game or just in general?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, dating back to the 2020 draft class, he never was top for me pre or post draft. I never bought in. If you're buying into a hype about a player simply because of the landing spot, that doesn't really shake much for me. I know he was a first round draft capital. That matters a lot. But, Patrick Mahomes handpicked him, right? Didn't they make like that phone call and Andy Reid was out there?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. Just imagine looking at the LSU offense and then the only piece you wanted was Clyde Edwards-Helaire when you could have got T. Higgins. I digress. Regardless, CEH has never been that dude, like, at all. Like, and it's obvious they did make a mistake. That's cool. They're moving on. That's fine. Like Alex said, if you could get a first-round pick, go get it. Doesn't matter the year, like he's saying. But I've never been on the CEH hype train. Sure, value matters. Like, if he's drafting him first round, second, third, like, I'm not cool with that. But if he's there and, I don't know, 6th, 7th, like, he still gets some touches. That's cool. But, like, when the game matters, maybe he's not getting those touches, and that's what matters.
That does matter a lot. And I think, from a dynasty perspective, I saw some people, I think, commented on that tweet, and they're like, well, now's the time to buy him. And some people said now's the time to sell him for, like Alex said, for anything. And it's almost like if you made that investment, you might as well probably stash him right now because nobody's going to give you anything worthwhile, in my opinion, after this performance, right? I think too often we in Dynasty, we do a lot of reactionary moves. And after this game, I think it's if you got him, you just got to stick him in your back pocket for now because there's a chance he could still be the starter right next season, or he will be the starter next season. But in terms of you putting him on the block, like, what do you expect to get,
Hold on. So before we move on from this.
Go ahead.
What are, like, let's think about the New Orleans Saints. They're kind of, Peyton's gone. Drew Brees obviously has been gone this year. What if Kamara becomes available and the Chiefs go out and get him? I also think the Bills might, but, like, what if the Chiefs do? And then you're stuck with CEH for nothing. So if Alex is saying if you could get something, get that something while it lasts.
And I'd be surprised, just looking at that, I'd be surprised if the Chiefs don't do some sort of ballsy move because they 2 years in a row now have been, like, pretty close to getting, another championship, but, like, not. So I think that it might kind of hit them that they have a lot of good pieces, but they might just need to get that final, like, weapon, I guess, or something, to add to that offense.
They need defense before, though. So
yeah. Oh yeah. With the Bengals, Higgins 6 for 103, Chase 6 for 54 and a touchdown. Obviously, this duo looked really good in this game. a key factor I thought was important was on the defensive side. I don't do a lot of defensive digging all the time, but Sam Hubbard on the D line, 4 tackles, 4 assisted tackles, 2 sacks. I think going into the Super Bowl, I think having a guy like that is going to be important to have a big game, because I think having somebody to get to Stafford is going to be very important. I think that's kind of slept on. We talk a lot about the Rams, which we'll talk about in a second here. Donald and Von Miller, but we got to have somebody on the Bengals side of the ball that does the same. So any player stand out is like, this needs to be their X factor in this Super Bowl game before we move on to the second set of games.
I mean, it should be obvious. You talked about Aaron Donald, Von Miller. I think the players that are going to matter is Jackson Carman, Trey Hopkins, Riley Reeve, Jonah Williams, Quentin Spain, the offensive line for the Bengals. They need to give Burrow some time to make the throw, the reads, whatever it may be.
Great point.
That's obviously, everyone thought that about with the 49ers. They thought that they needed, whatever it is, Joey Bosa, Arik Armstead. Like, you need to stop them. The line needs to stop the pass rush.
Oh, yeah.
If they can.
Absolutely. What about you, Alex? Any key factors going in for the Bengals?
No, definitely that offensive line. If Burrow's on the ground anywhere near those 9 times against the Titans, it's going to be a long day for Cincinnati, unfortunately. But another key player, it would have to be, you got to go with that Bengals secondary, led by Jesse Bates, who had a great play to tip that ball up in overtime. Eli Apple made that tackle on Tyreek Hill, the butt of all Twitter jokes.
He tweeted about it. Yeah, he tweeted about it too.
But when you're going against Cooper Kupp and OBJ, it's a daunting task to begin with. Give Stafford some time, it's a wrap. So it's definitely in the trenches for Cincinnati to really make this a game, and honestly probably steal one.
And I think Burrow, unless I misrecorded, only sacked once in this last game. So that was a huge change in comparison to the 9 where he seemed to be touched on every other play. But moving forward to the Rams 49ers, Rams going to the Super Bowl 2017 over the 49ers. The last time they were there was 2018. They lost to the Patriots. So this Rams 49ers game separated by 3 points. Pretty good game. What stands out to you, Corey, from this game?
For fantasy, just more touching on Odell Beckham Jr. Obviously had a great game. What was that? 9 receptions, like 113 yards. But if you look previously, the splits between the Browns and the Rams, they were kind of fairly similar. It's just kind of giving him to a situation where he's more appreciated. I think what stands out again is just more so of that narrative that was previously surrounding him, being a bad teammate, a bad whatever it is. Like, it's just always been bogus. And you could just see what thriving in like a real supportive and, positive energy environment will do for you. Obviously, quarterback helps. Stafford versus Baker Mayfield, it's going to be a little bit different. But again, the splits were a little bit different. The only thing that mattered was touchdowns. And obviously this game now 9 for 113, super good to see. And obviously moving forward, that's great for Odell.
And he's looked great. I mean, he's had a lot of good games leading up to this one. He scored a handful of touchdowns. I'm going off the top of my head. I thought it was like 6 touchdowns in his first 9 games or something like that with the Rams. And he's looked really good. My question, I'm putting you on the spot, and I don't expect you to have a solidified answer, but do you think he gets paid by the Rams next season? You think he's going to be a Ram next season?
Yeah, I mean, a lot probably goes into it, whether it's how much money will he want. Does he want a 1-year prove-it deal? Does he want to take the low for, I don't know if you want to call it a hometown discount anymore, but for the Rams, what's going to happen with Robert Woods, Van Jefferson? I would like to see the Chiefs go out and get him. They need a wide receiver too. So I don't know what's going to matter to him. Winning, the money, both, combination of both. Like, I don't know, but my heart is telling me, my head, I don't know. My heart is telling me he's going to be a Chief because they just need a second wide receiver.
And he might be that sort of guy that has this massive year to go to Super Bowl and says, hey, the next opportunity with a little bit more of a bag, I'm going. But
well, why change it up? Like, he obviously seems like he's a great teammate. He doesn't care about being the number one anymore. If he can take a nice team friendly, I don't know the contract situation or the cap situation for the Rams, but if he wants to be the, not the number one, Cup can handle that. Him, Robert Woods, Van Jefferson can just handle it. Because I think the Rams and the Bengals actually were the top two teams in 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers on the field. So if you have Odell, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp out there, and then Van Jefferson kind of comes in to do his thing whenever he wants, that's pretty cool. So, it kind of just depends what Odell wants to do. That's my answer.
And it seems like his demeanor, I mean, the clips from him at practices and him on the sidelines, it seems like he really loves playing football again. Like, it sounds corny to say that, but it just like comes off that way. But Alex, any thoughts on OBJ? And then let me know something that stands out from this game.
Yeah, as soon as Corey mentioned OBJ hitting the open market, my head immediately, like him, went to the Chiefs. He would be a perfect fit, as he would be considered the number 3 option in Kansas City with Kelsey and Hill, but number 2 on that receiving depth chart. He's going to see his own. We won't need to see guys like Byron Pringle, Demarcus Robinson, McCole Hardman. The list goes on and on of just guys who shouldn't be seeing combined 100 targets from Patrick Mahomes. Give that to Odell. That offense would have probably put up 40 to 50 against Cincinnati this past week. And to me, what stood out in this game, similarly to what stood out to Corey in the first game, you really need a quarterback to win. You can see the difference between Matt Stafford and Jimmy Garoppolo. Even though Stafford didn't have the best game, all he had to do was just be a little less bad than Jimmy G. And when Jimmy went full-blown Carson Wentz to end that game, that was like the writing on the wall. Trey Lance was like, okay, I'm starting next year. And it was just basically, it's going to be that.
Yep.
And then Twitter erupted, of course, and said, things like if Trey Lance was in the second half, things would be different. I mean, have all these crazy conclusions that come from it. But Stafford, 31 for 45, 337 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, did have an interception as well. This run game to me is kind of interesting for the Rams, because I feel like, Cam Akers has been the guy in terms of getting the most touches the last 2 games. But this one, 13 carries, Sony Michel, 10 carries. Neither guy really carried the ball great. And Cam Akers really hasn't carried the ball great this set of playoffs. I mean, he's had some bigger bursts of runs and things like that. But when we look at the, yards per carries and things like that, I'm wondering how this is going to look in the Super Bowl. If it's going to be him getting most of the work like it was 2 games ago, or if it's going to be the split like this was 13 to 10, in terms of carries. I didn't look into the receptions, but you guys have any thoughts about how you think they're going to approach this in the Super Bowl? Because it did seem like 2 games ago it was one approach, more of a one guy taking the whole load, and then in this game it was a mixture of the 2.
I'd watch out for Cam Akers' shoulder. He missed the majority of the second quarter and the beginning of the third with that injury. He did come back in about midway through the third. So if there's any doubts of that shoulder, especially coming off of the Achilles, they're going to take it very slow with him in the Super Bowl. And even if he's questionable, I think it'll be like a 60-40 Michelle as the lead back instead.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like you said, 13 to 10, that's 23 carries. We obviously see what that offense is going to be like if we're getting pass heavy, and we got the Bengals with their 3 options. Of course, Uzomah. I don't know. Looking at Cam Akers, like he's saying, you want to take it careful, but it's like you're in the Super Bowl. Like, just help him up with some, medicine that helps the pain go away. He has shown burst regardless of how his box score stats have come out. Yards per carry, is it directly a running back stat? Is an offensive line, stat too? So there's a lot that goes into play. I don't know. He's 6 months removed here from the Achilles injury, coming back. Obviously, some rust. Does he have vision problems? That could be a him factor. But again, it kind of just goes down to how this Super Bowl is going to be played out. Is it going to be a shootout? Is it going to be clock controlling, game plan type stuff? Especially if Michelle has looked fine for the Rams, pretty good actually. So, he should warrant some touches. And if it is the 60-40 split with Michelle taken ahead, that's super cool if that's what makes the Rams game better.
And I think for them, it does give them some confidence if Cam is a little bit banged up, just because, like you said, Sony Michel had a lot of good games. He actually had some great games for them, which is nice to see too, because they don't have to throw in a random guy in there. They don't have to throw in like a Jake Funk and give him the load or something like that. But last question, and then we'll move on to some dynasty topics here. But who wins? Who wins and why? Rams, Bengals. For me, I have. My wife and I have Bengals jerseys, so I was like joking around saying we're Bengals fans, and I feel like, I feel like, I'm rooting for them because I like the underdog story, and I really like the young core that they have. But I feel like the Rams might be a better team in general, so that's kind of where I'm at. I would like this to happen, but I think this will happen. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think about who's going to take this on 2 Sundays from now, or 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll go to whoever wants. Corey, you can jump in. What do you think?
Okay.
You got Rams or Bengals, man?
It's always awkward and a lot of anxiety going on to who to jump in. Anyways, again, like you said, I want one team to win. I think another team's going to win. I want the Bengals. Think the Rams are going to win. But I don't know. The Bengals, they have this fire. The fan base is loving it. Obviously, the Ram base is probably loving it too. But, I mean, dude, it's been 3 years. The Bengals, it's been, 30 years since they've been in the playoffs. And here they are in the Super Bowl. Yeah, it just comes down to how this coaching is going to matter. Zach Taylor's been awesome. Sean McVay's pretty cool too, it seems. So I don't know. I'm just really excited, looking forward to just a good football game. Hopefully, don't care about the halftime, but I'm going Rams.
Going Rams. And speaking of the Bengals, the last Super Bowl appearances were in the 80s, so it has been a while. But I like the fact too that we're looking at something different. I didn't want to see the Chiefs and the Bucks. That would have been terrible. No offense to those fan bases, but Alex, who do you got in this one?
I'm going Burrow. I can't bet against Joe Burrow. I can't make that mistake again. He is.
What is the line?
On it. Last I saw, Rams were 4.5 favorite, and it's one of those. The way Burrow, down 18 against Kansas City, cool as a cucumber. Let that come back.
Love it.
Sacked 9 times against the Titans. Ended up winning that game. Was in a dogfight with the Raiders from the opening kick. Ended up winning that game. Even going back, obviously, to his time at LSU, kid's just there's no moment too big for him. I think it's going to play that same way again. I think it's just going to be another game. Bold prediction: Burrow throws for 350, and 3. Higgins and Chase both have 100 and a score. Bengals win it in a shootout.
Love it.
Hey, and
I'm on board.
Partially, I kind of want to see. I used to like Ramsey back on the Jags. Like, I got a Ramsey jersey in the garage, even though I have like everybody's freaking jersey in the garage. But seeing him like chirp at Robbie Gould, I hope that he gets like torched in this one. I'm going to be mean about it. But another interesting story. Speaking of coming back from the Chiefs deficit, I was at a bar with some family. And we're wearing Bengals jerseys because that's all we have. So my wife and I were like cheering all out and stuff. And for some reason, Corey, I don't know if this is something you can relate to, but the place I'm at, like, we're all Chiefs fans. I don't know if it's like a Midwest thing. I don't know, but we were getting a lot of shit from some of the other people cheering and stuff. And some guy looked at our table and said he would bet $1,000 once it went to overtime that the Chiefs would beat the Bengals, and they didn't. So that was interesting in itself. But any overtime thoughts anymore when it comes to how things played out, or did that all just like go out the door when the Bengals actually won this one?
I mean, there comes the situation, like, rules were established at one point of time where things were very different going on. Fast forward, how long has it been since there? Hundreds? I don't know, whatever, how many years it's been.
Medieval
it's like
times, I think.
Maybe the rule should change, but then it's also like, if you don't want to have the rule change, don't allow them to go into the overtime, have your defense step up. I don't really care. I don't know if it comes as a surprise to anyone, but I don't watch football, so I don't it doesn't bother me. But are we like really surprised? Like, an outdated rule is like kind of sketch at this point. Like, first possession, you get a touchdown, you win. It's like, whatever.
Yeah, I think at this point, no matter what the rules are, somebody's going to be mad because of their specific team didn't win. So it just kind of is what it is at this point.
Yeah.
But moving forward, so we'll get out of the Super Bowl talk because I'm sure everybody and their mother's going to be talking about it for the next 2 weeks here. But let's talk some dynasty topics. So first on the list here, I like talking about like sleepers and guys that target and guys that sell and all that good stuff. But I feel like people who produce content forget like some of the basic advice that maybe us three feel is basic is not super basic in casual leagues. So it's nice to talk about strategy and small points that, again, might seem, basic to people who are diving into it too much like us three, but maybe not so for the average fantasy player. So first question here is, can you give some sort of advice to people who are playing in dynasty leagues during the offseason? It could be anything. So I know that, this time of year between, the season just ended, but we still kind of got football, and then we'll soon have no football. Some dynasty leagues are kind of dead at this point, or they don't know, should I be making moves? Should I still be negotiating? Should I take a break? I'm trying to trade. I'm not trying to trade. There's a big mix of really not knowing what to do. I feel like, just because in some of my leagues, it feels like it's kind of like a dead zone. So any advice when it comes to this point in the offseason? We'll start with you, Alex.
Honestly, if you're in a league and it's inactive for the majority of the offseason, that's okay. Not everyone's deranged like the three of us who do this 24/7, 365. But if your league is inactive in the offseason, wait until about like 2 weeks before your guys' rookie draft is scheduled to really dive back into it. At that point, I wouldn't be trying to go for picks in that upcoming rookie draft because everyone's going to have the rookie fever. Everyone's going to be like, oh, this is my guy. I really want him. He got drafted to my favorite team. How can I pass up on him? Instead, shoot for picks a year or two down the line. That way, picks are always going to get value. You're going to have more money in your pocket when teams start to scramble in a year from now. Let's say come even the trade deadline the upcoming season, you're sitting there with a few first-round picks burning a hole in your pocket. And you got a team that's 2-5, and they're like, oh, I have no picks the next year. You can take a couple of their nice players, build that roster, and really go to be a contender without having to do the year-round work.
Yeah. And I feel like that's for me in some of my leagues, I don't think that's super common for people to look like down the road like that. I think everything's kind of focused on now and the next class. So I think that's an interesting point in itself. Corey, any advice about inactive leagues right now in Dynasty? Anything?
Right. Here we are. What is it? January 31st. Like the season, we got draft coming up. March, things kick off. The NFL draft, free agency happens. If you're in an active league, or if you want to be in an active league and you're not in an active league, you should just leave the inactive league. Not sure what can really be done to make inactive players more active, since that's on them. So like we had a buddy, it's a home dynasty league. He left because he understood he was not as active as he should be. And we appreciate that. That's cool.
Fair.
But that same dynasty league for since the season ended up until now, like very minimal things have happened. Communication sure happens, but things don't really start picking up for a few months, kind of like how Alex alluded to. But, if you have a guy in your league, he sets his lineups, he makes his waiver wires, but he's not really like trading, there's not really much you can do. And that's, kind of like me, Nick, we're in that league, shout out to Kluge, but I said in the chat, like, I don't trade much. So I don't know, what do you consider inactive? Like not trading or not making moves, not setting your lineups. That's pretty bad. That's probably kickable, right?
Yeah. I think in dynasty leagues, you can look at it in many different ways. It can be guys actively playing the waiver wire. It can be guys, showing interest in other players or looking to trade. But I think you bring up a good point, because I feel like some people don't trade a ton, but they trade when they feel like they need to. And that sounds like it might be your case. And I'm probably the opposite, where I'm just always looking to move things around. And you don't have to be necessarily one way or the other. I mean, I'm sure you might be open to some ideas, but you're not, you're probably not looking to, off-haul everything all the time,
And speaking on that, like I know the rookie draft's coming up, but like I don't want to trade a rookie draft or move up, for a rookie if I don't know that rookie is there.
Yeah.
So right now, like I don't want to trade up, give up all these assets, and then have my pick be taken or someone come up and take them. So it's just this null time. Like it's January, about to be February. Like it's just kind of everyone needs a little break. Like you said though, if you are kind of engaged in like, I'm kind of interested in this. Like I'm always kind of active looking for pieces. Like especially when I made it to the playoffs, I traded a second for Cordarrelle Patterson. It didn't really work out. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But like time and places for trades, and I don't know. It just seems right now is not a good time and place to be active.
Yeah, and it's going to vary league to league because I'm in one where there's actually been a handful of trades, and I'm in like two that there has been none. And one thing I tried doing recently, and kind of worked, kind of didn't. I actually got offers in a league that I never do, but what I see all the time is people put on Sleeper, for instance, they click the trade block button and it goes in the chat. So what I did in one league was, I went on like Word document and I listed my trade block, not like 100 players, maybe like 5 or 6 guys. And I put like what I was looking for. So let's say I put Nick Scripp on the block and I said, I'm looking for a wide receiver plus a third, or I'm looking for a running back plus a second. I don't know, something like that. So I made a list of that. And I feel like that kind of helped because I feel like some guys in my specific leagues, they want to make moves sometimes, but they're not, sure what to do or what's a good offer. And, when somebody gets put on the trade block, they might have some interest, but they're like, I have no idea what the value would even be for this guy because, again, they don't look at this stuff as much as maybe guys that, produce content do. But that's been one strategy I tried out, and I actually got some offers and got close on some deals and things like that. But I agree. It is that weird time right now where it's like we just went through this long ass season of COVID and injuries and setting lineups and having to change those lineups and play the waiver probably more than ever because of such a complicated year. I got kind of a part 2 of this and then we'll move on. But is there any strategy that maybe you've tried in the past or thought was useful when it comes to the rookie draft picks? It could be, making moves for them, trading them away, hanging on to them, waiting till, the draft to do anything. I know, Corey, it kind of seems like that's been something you've looked at. But, Corey, we'll start with you. Anything when it comes to rookie draft picks? Because, again, I feel like guys that dive into fantasy, they're excited for it, but they don't know how to value certain things and what to do with picks and how to get picks and things like that.
Yeah. Rookie picks really heavily involved, especially in Dynasty, obviously. For rookie picks, like a lot of people like to look at the rookie picks and assign values to them as if the 1.01 means this versus the 1.07 means that. But the thing is, every draft class is different. 2022 draft class may not be as strong. It doesn't have its Jamar Chase, its Kyle Pitts as this current class, but it doesn't mean that there's bad players. But that 1.01 in this one, it doesn't seem like there is a consensus number 1 pick. So what does the value mean? Is it the same assigned value to the pick, or does it draw it down? That's a different debate. When it comes to rookies, I'm just kind of doing the research as much as I can on my own, whether that's from previous articles that I've attained my knowledge from. When it comes to scouting positions, I'm more confident in tight ends than I am any other position. So I like to kind of hit home on that. My default, go to my go-to Devy analysts, and people just have a way more understanding of college football than me, is probably a good thing to do. I don't want to just kind of go out a whim, like look at, this is my top 10 drafts and pick out of that. There's so much that goes into football, and go-to Devy analysts are cool. Also, if you want to kind of get a little analytical side, check out our amazing Devy and rookie tools over at DLF. That's another recommendation. So many other these people are doing their research. They're compiling their list, whether that's from film, analytics. You could get the best of both worlds. So to me, I put my trust into the guys that I trust, and then a little bit with my own process and weigh out the value opinions on the draft class from that.
Yeah, I'm very similar because I feel like I try to do my own research because I'm stubborn and stuff, but I also utilize the people I trust in the community. And I'm not gonna. I mean, there's so many guys you can name, but I'm very close to Kevin, who I did a full season of content with, and I know he does a ton of Devi, and Jeff does a show with Kevin and Christian. I mean, like those guys dive deep into it. So like hearing people out that I trust, and then developing my own sort of analysis and on it is something I try to do as well, but it's probably closer to the actual draft. But Alex, any further thoughts on rookie draft picks in dynasty leagues? Anything? It's just pretty much an open topic at this point.
Yeah, you guys hit the nail on the head there. Don't be afraid to admit you don't know everything. There's always going to be someone who knows more in a certain area. Reach out to the Devi people, sign up for a Patreon. Just ingest all the content that you can to give you the most information going into the draft.
Yep.
Another thing in regards to the rookie picks, if I have a stockpile of picks, I'm not moving a single pick until the first pick I have is on the clock. Then you see what the board's playing out so far. You can see what other people are trying to do in the draft so you can plan out the next few picks. See a few wide receivers go, person behind you has 2 running backs on their roster, more likely than not, they're going to reach for a running back. So it's almost as much as playing your opponent as it is playing the board.
Nice.
It's a good point. Very good points. And I'll close things off with saying that the picks are going to have a very high value post-draft and close to your rookie drafts in comparison. And now they probably do have a decent value, but that's something I've been trying to do kind of under the table, is try to grab some seconds and things like that. And then once we're close to the actual draft in our rookie leagues, when their value is at its peak and everybody wants to draft everybody, that's when I try to maybe trade away some of those picks. But I think timing is key in Dynasty. But we got a little less than 20 minutes, so I want to make sure we touch on some actual player topics here. And I'm going to make sure you guys do most of the talking for these. So first topic that comes to mind, we talk all off season about trade targets, right? People we want to trade for. And this guy is a guy you should go after. But I feel like we don't talk enough about guys that we might be trying to, I don't want to say get rid of, but maybe it's somebody that, if you have them, maybe you're trying to get some value in kind of part ways with this guy in Dynasty. So that's the topic here. If you had this guy, maybe you're looking to part ways and get the most for his value right now. And who's a guy that comes to mind as somebody you would say fits that category? We'll start with you, Alex.
For me, it's got to be Nick Chubb. It has to, especially with running backs. I'm under the philosophy of I'd rather be a year early than a year late. I practice what I preach. Last year, I traded both Dalvin and Kamara in the same league. Probably cost my chances of making a playoff run, but I went from having no picks to having 9 first-round picks over the next 3 seasons.
Jeez.
Completely revamp my
4.5 per
entire roster. So going back to Nick Chubb, he is going into his age 26 season. This past year, he had 228 carries for 1,259 yards and 8 touchdowns. Like I said, better a year early than year late. But what about the situation for Nick Chubb? Kareem Hunt only played in 8 games this past year. In those 8 games, Hunt still saw more targets than Chubb did in his 14. He out-targeted him 27 to 25. Yes, it's not a significant margin, but still what Hunt did in 8 games was still more than what Chubb did in 14. So that PPR ceiling is immediately capped. And if I were to be moving Nick Chubb, I would want a young receiver who's shown promise going into his 2nd or 3rd year when he's really hitting that physical prime, and a first-round pick. Or if I can get multiple firsts and like a second in either 23 or 24, like down the line, just to really get the most value. Because this time next year, God forbid he has a Todd Gurley plummet, has a bad season, goes down like Derrick Henry did, value's gone.
That's a good point looking in advance, because I feel like we hit that point where the value already changed, and then you're at the point where what you're going to get is obviously not what you want. And I'm a fan of Nick Chubb, the player. I'm a fan of what his importance is to the Cleveland Browns. I think he's the best player on the team, on the offensive side of the ball. But that is a good point. I feel like also, it's a thin position, and maybe Chubb is a guy that you can utilize to go after a younger guy that might be, in a more promising situation, plus something else. Maybe you can get, I don't know what the value is in every, person's league, but maybe you can start with Nick Chubb and end up with like a J.K. Dobbins plus something. I don't know. It just kind of depends on the league you play in. But Corey, any thoughts on Chubb? And then give us your guy that comes to mind for this category for selling in the offseason potentially.
Right. Alex alluded to the good old running back age apex. He's talking about the value, right? So running back hits this age, loses value, but that doesn't mean he will lose production. But if you want to be like Alex, he traded Kamara and Cook, got those 9 first-round picks over whatever years. That's going to change your dynasty. But kind of these sells, it comes down to if you're truly competing or if you just need that 1-year tool. And, we could easily name an aging player to sell, Chubb, these running back positions, or at like a wide receiver. Maybe that's DeAndre Hopkins. I can easily name some players exceeding expectations due to environmental circumstances. So someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown comes to mind for that specific point. I guess it is great to see a rookie progress over the season, but when you are progressing at your peak without DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson in the lineup, it's kind of like, he could be really good, but this is from a value standpoint, similar to Alex on Chubb. Gabe Davis probably comes into Amon-Ra St. Brown with here. They could be good players, but if their values are way over what they should be, you should cash in on that. But this also comes with league dependency on how your market is. Bunch of leagues, we can say anything we want to you and say you should go get this and that, but you should know your trade history of your league as well as of each individual owner. Keep notes on what they like to do. Do they overpay at the deadline for older guys? Do they go for those rookie picks when the season hits? So it's kind of tough to recommend a sell when it's league dependent, more that's market, trade tendencies, and all of this. But what you need to do, if you can, like what Alex did, get Kamara and Cook off the team for 9 first-round picks and whatever else could have come from that, that's a great example of what to do. So I recommend that.
You hit on a lot of good points, and I think the Amon-Ra and the Gabe Davis points, guys that probably will be good at football and have some decent fantasy value, but maybe you can have a return that's exceeding what their actual value is going to turn out to be. I think that's a good point. Knowing your league, that's a great point in itself, because I feel like often we go to the trade calculator or the Twitter polls and say, I should be able to get this, but knowing your league is important, because I know I play in a home league where I know I should get X for player, but I'm never going to get that for that guy just based off of how my league operates. And even Gabe Davis is the example. I traded him after that big game for a high second in a 1-quarterback, 10-team Dynasty League. And I knew I was never going to get a first for him. I didn't really see myself utilizing him in the long run, and I rather add up some draft picks personally. So it does vary team to team, and I think you had a lot of good points with that.
Thank you, man. That's very nice.
As we're going getting closer to the hour mark, let's go to the next topic here. And again, I want you guys to do most of the talking. You brought up Hopkins. That was actually going to be my guy, and I'm not going to dive into it, but I look at Hopkins and I say, hey, can I start with Hopkins and somehow land on a DJ Moore or Elijah Moore or something along that route? That was going to be my go-to example there. But next topic is going to be Superflex leagues. So again, Superflex leagues being leagues where you can start 2 quarterbacks. The value of quarterbacks are a lot higher. To actually have multiple quarterbacks on your team in Dynasty leagues is pretty tough. So I think that brings up a topic of a sleeper quarterback to target, because again, trading for quarterbacks in sleeper leagues is tough. So finding somebody who you might not have to spend the world on, but actually might give your team some value is important. So Corey, who fits that category for you?
Yeah, man. So it's like sleeper or undervalued. So coming off the Gabe Davis, Amon-Ra value hype, a little bit overvalued. undervalued, Zach Wilson, he kind of comes to mind here for me. Wilson, he came in the league, number 2 overall pick, some dynasty hype behind him. A slow start left many kind of weary of him as a quarterback. Like, he didn't really start off strong. I think he threw for 7 interceptions in the first 3 games. However, Wilson on the season, strong finish. Over those last 5 games, he had 0 turnovers. He did lose 1 fumble, but it was recovered by the Jets. So it's kind of cool to have that quarterback not turning over the ball. However, other factors come in, like his 51% completion percentage over that stretch too. That's not good. But playing defenses like New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and Buffalo, maybe that kind of matters a little bit, especially when Elijah Moore and Corey Davis missed that same stretch. Wilson was left without his best receivers. But not only that, so fast forward to kind of 2022, the Jets, they're going to get back their 2020 first-round pick, Mekhi Becton. He plays tackle. He had a 74.4 PFF grade as a rookie. 2021 first-round guard, Elijah Vera Tucker. 1 year into his development, he had a modest 66.8 PFF grade. But not only that, the whole Jets offensive line unit finished 12th overall in PFF grading. And I'm just a big fan of great offensive line play. Not only that, the Jets, they will have the 4th and 10th overall picks in the 2022 draft. They could maybe bring in another receiver playmaker, a Garrett Wilson, or maybe they solidify the offensive line. Maybe Lorenzo Neal falls to him at the 4th. Maybe they take Tyler Lindenbaum at the 10th. Realistically, I have no idea what they might want to do. Maybe they just get some defensive pieces. But, it may be a crime to not get an offensive weapon for Wilson. And maybe that's Jalen Weidermeyer in the 2nd round, the tight end.
So the opportunity is definitely there for them to improve their team. For one, I know that Crowder, I'm pretty sure, Keelan Cole, I think some of those guys are going to be gone. Not that they have a massive contracts, but it does give them some cap room too, and some other moving pieces. And I love Elijah Moore as one of my go-to guys, and seeing him ball out this season was unreal. And looking at Zach Wilson, after he came back from injury, he had a pair of games above 20 fantasy points. He went 3 games in a row to end the regular season with a touchdown, which you say oh, well, that's normal. But we look at Trevor Lawrence, for instance, who barely was throwing touchdowns. So we see some good signs for Zach Wilson. I don't think his price tag is too high, and I think on a team that has the opportunity to make some steps forward, that's a good call there. Alex, any quick thoughts on Zach Wilson as well, and then let us know a quarterback that comes to mind is a sleeper or is undervalued or maybe is a low cost quarterback.
Yeah, so I like the Zach Wilson. He was actually one of the 2 names I was thinking of. Figured, okay, Wilson's young. I like him more than any of the quarterbacks in this class. So if you have a mid to late first round pick, instead of pressing the button on a quarterback, trade that pick for Zach Wilson. But for me, I took sleeper as undervalued, underappreciated guy. You can probably get for a late first or a pair of seconds. Kirk Cousins. My man has been, you wouldn't expect it. He's been a top 15 quarterback 6 of the last 7 years. The 1 year he wasn't, he finished 19th. This year, another QB1 season, he had 42-21, 33 touchdowns, and only 7 picks. In the QB slot at your Superflex, you want a guy with a safe floor that can allow you to swing for the ceilings for your wide receiver 2 and 3 as well as your flexes. Cousins has done that for the last 7 years. He's a guy, if I'm going in with him as my QB2, I am more than okay with it.
And if we look at his efficiency through the season, I think he had 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 4 or 5 games above 72 for his completion percentage, which says a lot. He had a ton of multi-touchdown games. I think he's just always been that non-sexy quarterback option that's actually a good, reliable piece. And again, I don't think he's ever been the guy that your league is asking for the world for. So I like that as well. Corey, any quick thoughts on Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, man, I really love that like he's been just the epitome of consistency. 6 years, I think he said quarterback 1, quarterback 19 the other year. Oh no, that's so bad, especially if he's your quarterback 2. I guess he's a quarterback 1 the last 6 years, so you really like that, but he does seem underappreciated, undervalued. The only problem is, obviously, does he stay with Minnesota? Does he not? Does it matter? He seems to be a pretty decent quarterback. What is he, 32 years old, 31, 32, 33-ish? Doesn't matter, He's got 4 or 5 years left.
30, I think 33. He came in the RG3, Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson class.
Okay. Interesting. 33 years old. That seems old, to us. I'm 29. I'm getting some knee cracks. I got little back aches, but he's 33. Tom Brady's 44, whatever. He's got time. I'm not saying he's got 11 years, but he's got a couple of years.
Let's say Cousins ends up in Pittsburgh.
Nice.
For both of you guys, where do you gauge him next year if he ends up in Pittsburgh?
Does he need a new contract?
I think he has 1 year left.
Okay. So obviously that's appealing. Claypool, Deontay Johnson. Do they get Juju Smith-Schuster back? The second-year development for Pat Freiermuth is really cool. Najee Harris, he had the most touches right this year, which is insane for a rookie. I think he had 72 receptions off top. I'm not sure, but there's so much offensive weapons around him. That line is bad, but they're going to address that. They have to outside of the quarterback positions. I like Kirk. Dude, yeah, let's get Kirk Cousins to Pittsburgh Steelers, huh?
Yeah, he's 1 year, but a $45 million cap it. So they're 100% going to do some type of restructure for it.
And this is a new organization with a new GM and head coach now potentially. So things can change. Things can definitely change. I do want to ask you guys quick before we close things out, and you can just run through it fast. But we talk about dynasty sleepers all the time, and I like throwing out on the show sheet, give me a sleeper, because like you guys have already mentioned, I don't know what a sleeper means. Is it undervalued or it doesn't cost a lot or this and that? So it leaves it up to your own interpretation. So dynasty sleeper that you are trying to target in the offseason or maybe close to the season, depending on how you target guys. But Corey, who's somebody that comes to mind as a true sleeper? We talk about this topic all the time, but I like to hear about it though, because it makes me think maybe outside of my own box.
Right. Yeah. Like you're saying, there just seems to be this problem with the term sleeper. It just seems to be a nice way of saying take an educated guess and hope a guy pans out.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take an educated guess on a guy that kind of pans out so far, and that's Christian Kirk. Again, we're going to specifically speak on PPR leagues. Stepped up this past season following Hopkins' kind of injury season. He was only the PPR 26, 103 targets, 77 receptions. That's pretty cool. Depending on the sites, wherever you go for your rankings, he's sitting between wide receiver 40 and 50. So there's a little bit of the edge there to be utilized, considering he is an unrestricted free agent. Averaged 4.5 receptions, 57.8 yards per game. This is why he's undervalued, because you're playing him assuming you're just going to get that 10-ish points. And 9 points per game, 4.5 receptions, 57 yards. That's not really that exciting, but as a plug-and-play type player, you're going to be really happy with that. Led the Cardinals targets, receptions, yards, but a lot was kind of left on the table considering the Cardinals spread the ball around. They had 6 players over 50 targets. Does Kirk go to the Jaguars or Colts, aka teams that don't necessarily spread the ball around? I think they both had about 3 or 4 players over 50 targets. Not sure what that means about the teams, if they just did not have talent or not. Does Kirk have the talent? I'm not really sure. There's also a possibility the Cardinals re-sign Kirk. Hopkins is aging, player to sell. AJ Green being on a 1-year contract. So this is kind of where the sleeper aspect comes in. I do believe Kirk is a guy who's going to generate those targets. Targets are earned. And more specifically, if he's kind of utilized in the slot. So Kirk had the 13th most slot snaps at wide receiver, despite having only 49% of his snaps from the slot. So not only can line up in the slot, but he can be out wide. So I'm going to, I don't know, is he kind of like an off-brand Hunter Renfrow, depending his landing spot in free agency if he's just utilized as the slot?
And And I think for Kirk, and he had a lot of good flex-worthy weeks this year, and you bring up a lot of good points about how, where he can line up and what he can bring to a team, and the questions on, is it talent or was it him getting some nice opportunities through games and things like that. But I feel like that's a good pick, because I think the closer we get to free agency moves, if he does make this big splash move to a team that is really interesting and makes you feel like he's going to be a guy that can see 100 targets or something, his price now versus then is going to be two different things. So I feel like Kirk can definitely be one of those guys that now or pretty soon would be the time to maybe go out and grab him or add him as a piece in a bigger deal, because I think if he does go to a team that gets a lot of hype because of that move, his price is going to drastically change at that time.
Kansas City.
So, Kansas City, the Bears are throwing around, Lions are throwing around.
The Bills, I mean, you can throw
Green Bay. There's a plethora.
What did Aaron Rodgers do? He's currently valued 8.3 on Dynasty Trade Calculator. That's about the 2.01 to 2.04 in terms of second round picks. Something I need to note: I really want him to go to the Jaguars if Byron Leftwich becomes coach during Christian Kirk's rookie season at Arizona. Byron Leftwich was the offensive coordinator. Familiarity there with the coach, get Trevor Lawrence some weapons. Who knows what can happen?
And if that is solidified, he might be in the ears of the people over in Jacksonville saying we need to go and get this guy, and that'd be a nice clipped video right in itself if you did call that out right there for free agency.
Byron, he's not hired though, right?
Yeah. What's that?
He's not hired yet, right? Byron Leftwich.
You know what? It seemed like he was, and that it's been this weird delayed process. So I know he has not, which is weird. But Alex, same question before we close things out here. Who's a guy that comes to mind? A sleeper dynasty, maybe doesn't cost a lot or not getting talked about.
Yeah. So for me, it's someone who can you can just get thrown into a deal. He's going into his third year. You will have a new coaching staff in Vegas with Josh McDaniels. And that's Bryan Edwards. He's only 23 years old, which is good. I know he's borderline turning into a face planter bust type of player, but he did double every single statistical category from year one to year two: the targets, receptions, yards, touchdowns. And it seemed like he was just getting more acclimated to the NFL. Sometimes you see it with these super young declares for the draft, where it's like, oh man, I can't even get a beer yet. How am I supposed to match up one-on-one with Jalen Ramsey? And it's like, get overmatched, overwhelmed. And it takes that 2-3 year period to adjust to the league. He could have a good year. He could be a bust, but it's someone
free,
low, extremely, extremely low risk, which that's the type of sleeper in the off season that I'm willing to take that shot on.
And I like how you approached it at first. It'd be a guy you throw in for another deal. I don't think you necessarily have to say, I'm going straight up for Bryan Edwards with this specific player pick. I think it's like, he's that guy like, oh, we're close on the deal. Like, can you throw in Bryan Edwards? And they'd be like, oh, okay, sure. That sort of thing. But it'll be interesting to see how this team meshes next season. Again, moving coaching staff over there. Renfro had a massive year. Waller missed a bunch of games. Zay Jones had a bunch of good games at the end of the season too. So it'll definitely be interesting, but it was weird to see him like be quiet and then like score a touchdown out of nowhere. But I know a lot of people liked Bryan Edwards coming into his rookie season, looking like an off-brand T.O. I think Gruden was saying something like that. But
Randy Owens, he was calling him Moss.
There you go.
Dude was insane.
Well, hey, we'll close things up there. We just went over the hour mark, so do appreciate your guys' time. I feel like we could have talked about these topics for a much longer podcast, but I don't want to get myself in trouble or anybody else. But I do want to make sure you guys can plug where to find you guys again on social media, and then anything else you want to close the show out with. Maybe if you have anything coming up for you specifically for content or anything. So Corey, we'll start with you, man.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, P2W. That's Play to Win Fantasy for having this. Shout out to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Right?
Yeah,
shout out to you guys. Thank you for watching. When you will watch doesn't matter. Thank you for tuning in. Corey Spela, that's Corey with an EY. I'm over at DLF, Dynasty League Football. shout out to us. They just partnered with BetSperts Media and Technology, so pairing up there with
Big
444 and Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. I am working on a bunch of, again, nerd stuff. I'm looking at Workhorse Cal running back data. I am looking at the too many mouths to feed. That's a statement that people throw out. And then I'm also looking at wide receiver production, specifically talking about kind of referencing Cooper Kupp. He's about to be 29, and when to expect really top tier wide receivers to produce into their 30s. Speaking of, Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens, those types of players. So a bunch of random dynasty data that doesn't apply to the right now, because we don't like, if you could guarantee these players are good, this will help you. But if not, who knows? I don't know. Shout out to Nick. Thank you for having me on. That's all I got.
Absolutely. It's some deeper topics though too. I feel like we see a lot of the same things all the time. So diving in a little bit more to some of those is going to be interesting to hear about or read about. But Alex, same question, man. Where can we find you on social media? And then anything you want to plug before we close things out?
Yeah, Nick, thanks again for having me on. It was a blast. I'm glad we finally got to do it. Corey, it was awesome chatting with you for the first time. Can't wait to read all, as you would say, your data nerd stuff. But I'm looking forward to it. You can find me on Twitter at AlexMateo94, doing some media content with Triple Play and moving forward, written stuff with Dynasty Nerd. So just be on the look for that.
All right, good stuff all around. If you listen to this live or in your car, really appreciate that. Make sure to give these guys a follow. They have some great content through the off season here. For myself, I'll probably do something solo on Wednesday night. Figure that out pretty soon. Not going to drop that yet, but some other random stuff throughout the week. So again, thank you guys for listening, and enjoy football while we have it. We got a Super Bowl coming up, and I think like Pro Bowl stuff that some people get into coming up. So have a good night, guys.